Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
Man, even more Throne of Eldraine, and I'm not even counting the fact that we had a preview card yesterday.
Bonus episode. But that's yesterday. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Preview card. But today, we got to talk about even more cards. Throne of Eldraine has, it's all here. Like, it's time to get down to business. You know?
Is it the entire thing been spoiled, basically?
300 of the 269 cards. So it's too confusing with all the different, like, weird art and, like, ancillary products.
Got it.
But yes, ostensibly, to the best of my knowledge and what I think is public-facing, at least WotC has said that, you know, all the cards, this is all the cards. So if there's anything else, it's some sort of sick, priceless treasure secret, you know?
All right. Well, I can respect that.
Yeah, but where to start? What do you think of that? The rest of that cycle of lands, of monocolor lands that enter the battlefield tapped unless you have an island or a swamp or a forest or a mountain. And I'm not talking about the like the Witch's Cottage one.
That's what we talked about weeks and weeks ago. At this point, the other 4 colors have been spoiled at this point, right?
No. So it's confusing, but there's actually 2 different things going on here. So there's Witch's Cottage. You need 3 or more other swamps, and it counts as a swamp. And there's another one that's like Witch's Cottage for white, Idyllic Grange, which is a plains that needs 3 or more other plains. And when it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So there's those 2, and they're just kind of their own thing. But there's also 5 of these rares that only need 1. They don't count as the land type, but they only need 1, and they have activated abilities that persist. So instead of, like, you know how Witch's Cottage is... I mean, Witch's Cottage is the black one at common that needs 3, but there's a rare Castle Eldraine that it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp, and it has tap for a B, and it has tap and pay 1 BB, draw a card, then you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. And there's one of these for all 5 colors at rare.
Well, let's just run through all of them.
Yeah, so starting with Castle. Oh, you mean like all at once?
No, I mean just one at a time. I think Castle Eldraine is exciting to me. I've heard some scuttlebutt about this where people are like, oh, it's not that good. You're going to take so much damage. But nobody's saying you have to use it every turn. And,
yeah, if you got cards, you can play your cards.
Yeah, and separately, like, what if you don't have a lot of cards? Like, what if you're in top deck mode and you're just taking 1 point per turn to get a freebie, and it's off of a land slot, not even using a spell. Like, isn't that pretty good to have? It's just an option. You don't have to. Oh, I have 8 cards in hand. Use my Castle Eldraine. Look, nobody told you to take 8. Like, you had choices, man.
That said, there are occasionally synergy cards that actually reward you for being able to, on command, take a huge amount of damage.
Like Death Shadow?
Right. So it's kind of it's an interesting option to have access to. But even if you're just playing an aggressive black deck, if you can empty your hand, this is a relatively low... I mean, you can't play too much of this because you sure don't want to play it as one of your first 3 lands.
Well, maybe you do. Like, what if you just had Castle Eldraine as in your sideboard, like you were playing Esper Control or something, and you brought it in the mirror match, where A, you want to never miss a land drop, and B... this gives you a source of card advantage, and very subtly, this gives you a source of card advantage that you can utilize at the end of your opponent's turn, even if they have Teferi in play.
Well, that's interesting, and it is. I do want to correct myself. You don't need 3 like you do with Witch's Cottage. You only need 1. So a single Watery Grave or Godless Shrine, and your castle's untapped. That said, I think you got to be careful. If you're playing an Esper deck, there's a real possibility your hand's just going to be so loaded that you don't get to use the castle very effectively.
Yeah, but like I said before, you don't have
to. But I bet this card is very effective against Esper.
Like, if you've got, like, 7 cards in hand, like, why are you not casting them, right? Like,
because they're negate. Yeah, because they're negate. their Kaya's Wrath, their extra copies of a Planeswalker you control. There's a lot of things you could. I mean, I think you just got to be able to imagine your hand ever being low.
Yeah. Well, I think
I think this card's really exciting.
Like, what about in the black-red deck, right? Like, the decks
Definitely.
that are spectacling, kind of in another universe would have been hellbenting. They're dumping burnout, or they're getting their stuff low so they can get the bonus on the Reveler. Like, I think this card is probably super good in a deck like that. That's kind of just, here's my stuff, trade. Now I've got a little bit more remainder than you, and I'm going to win on lasting power.
So do you like this better or worse in Esper than something like Castle Vantress, the blue one? When it enters battlefield tapped unless you have an island. Super easy, right? And then it has tap for a blue, or tap and pay 2 blue to scry 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this card might be great, but I'm not excited by it yet. Maybe I need to.
You think you're just not going to have that kind of mana laying around not being used?
5. This is basically 5, right? So 2 UU is 4, and then you have to use Castle Vantress itself. 5 to scry 2? I mean, like, I hope I'm doing something better with 5 in the mid game, right? Like, in the situation you were talking about, which is like my hand is full of negates and redundant planeswalkers, so like basically I'm loaded. I'm just using Castle Vantress to hit my next land drop, right? Like, that's it. And okay, I guess that's good. I mean, I kind of would rather just be casting spells. This is a real expense. I mean, don't get me wrong. Scrying 2 is a sweet thing to do, and if you're not spending anything for it, like I'm not expending any cards, I'm just like using mana, it's probably pretty cool, but 5 is a tall ask.
Yeah, what if you're playing some sort of a blue-green ramp deck? I mean, you'd have to make sure you have enough islands so this is really untapped most of the time. But if you're playing some kind of a blue-green ramp deck, is there any possibility that, like, you stall out a little bit, and then this gives you a way to dig quickly to some gas?
Maybe I think I'm less likely to want that in a ramp deck than I am in maybe like a flash deck. Like, I think if you have like one Castle Vantress in the blue-green flash deck, you're not doing anything on their turn anyway. You're leaving up mana to cast counter spells. I don't know. Maybe this will like help dig you to a counter spell, or it
could be okay to play one of those.
The big problem I have with this is, I guess if you're behind, you're behind. I'm like, if I'm getting beat down by red weenies, like this is the last thing I want to be as my hope. Like I'd rather have Castle Locked Wayne in that spot. I guess Castle Vantress is digging deeper, right? If you need specific answers, looking at 2 cards is actually more selection than drawing a card, even if you're taking a point, right? I guess it evens out because you draw your next card in either case.
Well, I mean, Scry 2 is you're still digging deeper. You could put both cards on the bottom.
No, I'm saying, but like in the case of Castle Vantress, you scry 2 for sake of argument, and then you draw the 3rd card. And then Castle Locked, if you're putting 2 down, right? And then Castle Locked Wayne, I guess you draw 1 and then draw 1. Yeah, Castle Vantress is digging deeper, potentially digging deeper anyway.
Okay, here's one that you've got to be excited about: Castle Garenbrig. This is the green one. Yeah. It enters battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. It taps for a green. And it has tap and pay 2 green to add 6 green to your mana pool that can only be used to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. So, for instance, let's suppose you're playing Modern and you go Search for Tomorrow, turn to Ramp Spell, and then you just play Castle Garenbrig and then Primeval Titan.
Yeah, I think that's the script, right? This turns 5 mana into 6. Not even in Modern. First of all, I think that this is just whiz bang going to be, especially if you're going to play a fair deck with Primeval Titan. I think like the unfair decks with Primeval Titan often have some restriction on land types that they might need to get around. I'm not sure about that, right? If you've got a prismatic omen or something, maybe that cures all ills. But in standard, for example, there's all kinds of green decks that play like a ton of acceleration creatures and mid-range planeswalkers. I see very little reason to not just jam 4 copies of Castle Garenbrig in those kind of decks, right? Like,
well, you have to have enough forests that you're pretty reliably going to play this untapped.
yeah, but they have like so many forests.
That's true. The other thing is that this doesn't give you double when you've got a Nissa. That's only a small point, but it's something.
I mean, I think I can live with the fact that this doesn't give me double when I have a Nissa, given the fact that I can get one back, right? Like if you've got, a Nissa in play, the implication is that you had 5+ mana to begin with. If you have, just 2 of those being forests, you're netting mana. Are you just even? I guess you're just even if you have a Nissa in play.
At best, you're even. Because it is more awkward.
But you don't always have a Nissa. And when you have a Nissa, people are attacking the Nissa.
That's true.
And people are killing your lands when you have a Nissa. They're always casting some kind of time wipe when you have a Nissa, and they're killing all your forests. I think this card is very, very exciting. I can't.
Dude, what about just powering out your troll? Feasting Troll King?
Yeah,
just play it a turn ahead of schedule.
I think that guy is very close to my favorite powerhouse card in the new set, Throne of Eldraine. Presumably, if you're gonna cast the Feasting Troll King using this sweet new land, it's gonna come out of your hand, so you're gonna get the food for the re-ups anyway. That's good. Yeah, I think people are gonna play 4 copies of this. It seems really strong to me.
It seems real strong to me too. Additionally, it's not just about the big ramp decks, because you can break it up. If there's imagine the previous format, even though a lot of those cards have rotated out, how there was that green deck that was either mono green or mostly green, sometimes splash black or whatever, or splash blue, where it's you're playing a lot Steel Leaf Paladin or Steel Leaf Champion and Galta and just green fatties, green monsters, whatever. You can just use this as a if your deck is almost entirely imagine if your deck was just 17 forests and 4 of these. It's going to be untapped almost all the time. And then it's just going to function like a forest, but then you have this upside of, on turn 5, assuming you don't even have any accelerators, but on turn 5, you can just play 6 mana worth of stuff for just no reason, right? And even if you just have an accelerator, which you will frequently, you'll be able to just be this is like a ancient tomb of sorts, but it's producing colored mana.
Yeah,
and it washes the mana, incidentally.
You're only going to get jammed up in the cases that, you kept a 2-land hand and they were both Castle Garenbrig, right? Which is not, it happens, right? But it's kind of atypical.
Another part of the equation is that this is not a forest. So it kind of this whole cycle has this attribute. It sure does a mean impression of a basic land in many instances. But take Castle Vantress, for instance. Castle Vantress in Modern, you can play this and it won't get stuck by choke. So if you're playing a mono blue, say you're playing a mono blue Merfolk deck, how those decks often will just play one Manamo and one Oboro because they just want to have some lands that don't get stuck by choke?
This is a similar thing then.
Right.
And sometimes you'll scry.
Right. Sometimes you will. Castle Embereth, the red one. This one's, to me, looks a little bit more standard. It's the same formula as the rest, but its ability is tap, pay 1 red. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until on a turn.
I mean, if you're weenie tokens, if you're kind of a go wide deck, this is obviously it scales with how many creatures you have, right? If you've got one guy, this is
and mountains for that matter.
A bit of an inefficient way to do it, but I mean, I guess it's free because it's on a land. But if you've got a lot of guys, Castle Embereth is very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing, imagine your deck is 17 mountains and 4 Castle Embereth. Well, I mean, great, right? Like, there's a mono red deck.
Yeah. I think absolutely. Castle Embereth is going to be, first of all, it's going to be pretty consistent in a deck like that. And second of all, like, depending on the kind of threats that you have, you can either be punching through planeswalkers and stuff, or, just getting them for a ton of damage. I mean, it really depends on what creatures you have. But I think that's probably a very plausible mana base.
Yeah, because I think a lot of red decks are going to be interested in some cheap creatures. Some of the power in this set is really in the hands of stuff like Robber of the Rich, and different stuff like that. What about, finally, Castle Ardenvale, the white one? You can tap, pay 2 white to make a 1/1 human creature token.
This card is very powerful. I mean, like, this seems to me like the gem of the set, of the cycle. It's really,
So I like the green one, but this one is, first of all, can we start with this card is clearly better than Keldarin Outpost by a good amount?
I mean, do you remember how warping Keldarin Outpost was when it came out? Like, you had the strategy for Keldarin Outpost or you lost to Keldarin Outpost. That was it. There was nothing in between.
Castle Ardenvale is like, because Keldarin Outpost costs tap and pay 1 and a white. It's actually secretly kind of tap and pay 3 instead of tap and pay 2, because you already sacked a land, right?
Yeah.
And then Keldarin Outpost tapping for 1 is like pretty fake, because it's like, so Castle Ardenvale will usually cost you nothing, but sometimes cost you 1 up front. Keldarin Outpost costs you nothing up front, usually, and then costs you 1 more all the time from now on.
Forever.
Right, and so and it was
Lauer,
amazing.
right? So if you're Eric Lauer or Andrew Cuneo, it kind of didn't, because those are the only people I knew who played the baubles, but everybody else, it cost them 1 forever.
Ooh, man. Well, I didn't.
Oh, but he played it in a red-green deck.
Hey, actually, Sean Fleischman, his 4-color Ice Age deck had 1 Lodestone Bauble for Spice. Sometimes you just got to get the Outpost back. But anyway, I can tell you're into this card. Seems like a low opportunity cost way to just have added threats. I don't think I'm as high on it as you, because I think there's just so many ways to spend your mana. I think Castle Garen Briggs' ability to give you extra mana is going to turn out to be great. I think Castle Embereth's ability to, naturally slotting into your strategy and low opportunity cost is going to make it frequently played. It's just not as high impact. But I think Castle Ardenvale is going to be solid.
I mean, maybe I'm just hearkening back to the ages where, we worried about how many slots in our deck were devoted to winning. Like, I could just, in Standard, what if I'm just playing like a blue-white control deck and my way to win is Castle Ardenvale, right? This is basically, it's free. I'm just willfully playing 25, 28 land, some number of Castle Ardenvale, maybe 3, maybe 4. And the rest of my deck is just card drawing and stuff to keep me alive, right? Like, I don't know. I find that to be something I at least want to explore.
The thing I would caution you about is take a minute and consider how much is a 1/1 token really worth compared to how much is Scry 2 really worth.
I think a 1/1 token will often be less powerful than Scry 2. The difference is that a 1/1 token can win the game, and Scry 2, by actually damaging my opponent in combat.
Yeah, but it's not like you're not going to play some Planeswalkers or something. It's not like there's no incentive to play victory conditions these days.
Well, yeah, the victory conditions are all sweet these days.
And I think Scry 2 isn't the best thing ever, but neither's a 1/1 token, man.
I'm just imagining. Well, here's the thing I was thinking. And this doesn't necessarily line up 100% with Castle Ardenvale, just because Castle Ardenvale is the white one, but I guess you could play in a red-white deck. There's that new enchantment, the red enchantment, called, what's it called? It's
that lets you play 2 cards a turn.
Yeah. So where is it? Fires of Invention. So Fires of Invention is 3R for an enchantment. You can cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. You may cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana costs. The cool thing about Fires of Invention is even on the turn that you play the Fires of Invention itself, it can potentially double your mana. But then you're not doing anything with your mana, right? So I was just thinking, like, how do I compact some usability into my mana base? Right? That's the thing.
Well, yeah, but why not just use the red one? Castle of Embereth.
I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm casting with Fires of Invention yet. The best thing I could think of was like a circuitous route. Like 4 mana.
Why? You're not going to...
Fires of Invention. Free spell. Dude. Circuitous route. Now I'm going to have 7. Actually, the blue one's probably pretty good in that spot because I'm going to scry into spells. That's actually the problem. You're just going to get brick walled and not have anything to do with your infinite mana.
Maybe. There's a different red card that kind of has my eye. Isn't this card just bonkers? The Bone Crusher Giant?
Yeah, people are talking a lot about the Bone Crusher Giant. They're talking about trying to play it in Modern even.
Of course. Why would you not? Like, well, I would play this in Legacy.
Legacy?
Yeah.
All right. So Bone Crusher Giant is one of these gentlemen that's got a little book in front of its text box. It has the card Stomp, which is 1 in an R for an instant adventure. This is an instant speed stomp. Damage can't be prevented this turn. Stomp deals 2 damage to any target. That's close to playable by itself, right? Like it's like a little worse than Skullcrack, but it can target creatures, not just face. Right?
Well, also you can do things like when your opponent has a core Firewalker.
Yeah.
And it tries to block your Goblin Guide. You can't stomp the core Firewalker because it has pro red, but you can stomp their face.
Yeah.
And then the core Firewalker just dies. And it gets through stuff like Worship, right? Or anything that would prevent damage, you know?
Well, I was thinking in that same core Firewalker example, if you just truck with all your guys and their Monastery Swift Spears, it's even better than a Goblin Guide. Your Swift Spear will live. Their Firewalker will die because of Prowess Trigger, right?
Yeah.
I think that this card is definitely up for consideration in Modern. You're saying in Legacy. It's been a while since I played Legacy. This seems a little low powered to me for Legacy, but
dude, have you seen the kind of red decks people play? Where, like, picture a deck that has like 4 Simian Spirit Guides, 4 Blood Moons, 4 Magus of the Moons, a bunch of weird stuff like I don't know, Chalice of the Void.
Yeah, they're playing the most.
Of course, you would play this in that deck, right?
Okay, you're right. They've just got like 2/2 haste that has no other abilities in the red deck. Right? I mean, it's like you just can't play cards that I'm gonna chalice myself.
Dude, this card is great. This card is so strong.
All right, so that's only the front side. It's attached to a 4/3 creature.
Well, I'm only saying in Legacy I would play it because you get the Bone Crusher Giant too.
Yeah. So for 2 and an R, you get a 4/3 creature, which isn't that bad given the fact that it's the backside of a removal spell that would have been playable anyway. But you get more. Whenever Bone Crusher Giant becomes the target of a spell, Bone Crusher Giant deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. It's like, yeah, people are very hype on this card. I see
as they rightly should be. As they rightly should be. It's not clear to me that this card won't see play in Vintage.
Really?
Dude, it depends. Vintage is weird, though. Admittedly, it's a lot more likely that this card is going to be a Legacy card than a Vintage card. But Vintage is weird. And this card is the type of card that even though it's like powerful by normal standards, it also does some weird stuff that people who play Vintage could possibly dude, like sometimes it's weird, you know, like sometimes it's like, oh, I just need to have a way to survival for the fittest to get an answer to worship. And my deck is red green, and the best answer turns out to be Bone Crusher Giant because I also need to kill Deathrite Shaman. I mean, there's weird stuff that happens in some of these like powered
You
formats.
need to tell me they're summoning Slash Panther, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So this is how I feel about Bone Crusher Giant. Obviously, I think it's going to be played, but I feel very similarly to this card as you felt last week about Once Upon a Time. I think that it's good. I think it's probably going to be played. It's probably going to be pretty good, but I think it's a little hype.
How could, like, do you think this card is going to be a staple in Standard?
Yeah, I think it'll be widely played in decks that can tap for a red.
Okay. Do you think this card's going to be is going to put up some top eights in Modern and Legacy?
I'm not sure about that. I think it will immediately top 8 Standard. Like, you know, first 2 weeks there'll be a deck in like a Star City Games Open that's got Bone Crusher Giant in the top 8. I don't know about Modern and Legacy.
You don't think this is one of the 5 best cards in the set?
I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I'd have to lay it out. I think it'll be widely played. I think that it's fair to consider it for bigger formats, but I'm all about casting cost optimization in Modern, and this thing is 2 different casting costs on it that I'm not particularly interested in either one. I could be convinced. Please, I could be convinced. I just think it's a little hype.
We'll see. Dude, I'm still in for Murderous Rider. But, you know, enough's been said about that so far. There's a different black card, though. The Cauldron of Eternity. 10 black for a legendary artifact. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard.
So it can be as cheap as BB.
Right. And whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. And then it has the ability of 2 and a black, tap and pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery.
Wow. So lots of stuff going on here. If you cast the Cauldron of Eternity too early, early is in quotes, because if you're casting it too early, by my definition, it's going to cost you 12, and then you're never going to activate it, right? Because
well, you can still loot things away.
So just naturally going to the graveyard kind of things are going to be the ones that go to the bottom of the library instead.
Right.
These are the
but
things.
Realistically, what you're looking to do is spend 2 mana when you have 5 cards in your graveyard, and now you can get back 5 creatures over the course of the next 5 turns and surely dominate.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's really cheap if you're casting it for only 2.
Because what you're aspiring to do is on turn 5, play the Cauldron for 2 and immediately tap it.
Yeah, so you're basically like, it's better than drawing a card for 3, right? Like, drawing a card for 3 just puts it into your hand, but you still have to pay the mana for the card. This is you're tapping it for 3 and it's directly into play.
You have to pay 2 life.
Yeah, but like you could just be getting cards that have enormous impact also, right? Like if you're getting back anything that costs 3 mana or more, you're just way ahead of the game. Like way ahead. Like even in Standard, I think this is going to be like really strong. Like imagine you're getting stuff back from like, I don't know, just the Night Cycle from the last set. Like all those cards are generating huge advantages when they come into play.
Yeah, it could. I mean, some of the creatures aren't going to be worth as much in play as they would be in your hand, though, like Murderous Rider, for instance.
Sure.
But, like, I think it doesn't seem like it's going to really come down to how many ways there are to sort of stock your graveyard with bodies. You know, because it doesn't take very many, like, Sylvan Rangers or whatever for you to really get a lot of mileage out of this card.
Yeah, there's a couple.
But you need something. You don't want to just play this fair, right?
Well, I think you could play it fair, right? So in order to get it down for 2, you only need 5 bodies in the graveyard. Like this could be the kind of card that's similar to Command the Dreadhorde, where you side it in certain matchups, so you just wait. You know,
okay.
You play an attrition game, right? You're like, all right, you're trading your guys for their removal 4 or 5 times. You're like, all right, thanks for spending those 5 removal spells. BB, this is in play, and you're wildly ahead at that point. It's like casting the Immortal Sun or something.
Okay, I can see it as a sideboard option in spots like that. What about the Magic Mirror, man? 6 blue, blue, blue. So for 9, ostensibly, it's a legendary artifact that costs 1 less for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. You have no maximum hand size, and it can go down to 3, obviously. If you have 6, basically, if you have 6 instants and sorceries in your graveyard, it goes down to 3 cost. You have no maximum hand size, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put a knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror, then draw a card for each knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror. Note, this is not optional.
Oh, so you might kill yourself with it.
You draw a card, then draw 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The thing is, you got a little bit of time before it gets out of hand, right? Because even by the time you draw 8 cards, you're still talking about 36. Like, you've drawn 36 extra cards, and maybe the game has played out. Like, let's say you had 7 in your opening hand, and you drew 8 cards naturally for your draw steps during all that time. That's 51. You could very normally play Magic Mirror in the first 8 or 9 turns of the game. And if you play Magic Mirror in the first 8 or 9 turns of the game, you're just you're fine. You get 36 extra cards. And you can actually even try to time it so that you can draw all your cards exactly. And then one of the cards in your deck is like Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and then they die.
That's hot. So here's the thing about the Magic Mirror. The fact that you have no maximum hand size actually really widens what you can do with the card. So, like, at first blush, I was just like, do you really just want to play, like, super cheap instants and sorceries, like nothing but shocks and opts? Right? Like, that's the kind of stuff you're... Not only are those the kind of things that you can get a lot of them in your graveyard quickly, which will kind of get you to a cheap Magic Mirror, maybe a cheap Magic Mirror plus some mana open to defend yourself. But if you're in the situation where the Magic Mirror is drawing you 1, 2, 3, 17 cards, you're going to want to be able to get them out of your hand at a rapid pace also. But with no maximum hand size, you don't have to play that way. You can have some expensive cards, you can have lots of expensive cards, and kind of stockpile them and not really have to worry about it.
Well, I also think that Niv, Mizzet, Perun, and Expansion Explosion really they provide an end game for going big for a blue-red deck that the Magic Mirror doesn't really necessarily add that much more to. Versus if you're playing a blue-black deck, well, black doesn't have the same kind of overwhelming endgame that red or white would afford. Actually, white lost its stuff too, so either blue-white or blue-black. But the thing I like about blue-black is the amount of ways in which you can power the Magic Mirror naturally. Like, if you do Enter the God Eternals, you just for free get to mill yourself for 4 cards. Yeah. Which really accelerates the Magic Mirror coming down cheaper so that on turn 6 you can drop the Magic Mirror and be fully in business.
So this isn't a supernatural synergy because this card is not an instant or sorcery, but what do you think about the Magic Mirror with Oko, Thief of Crowns?
Well, it's a way to get out of it. I think you got to have a few different ways to get out of it, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Because, like, the Magic Mirror, being able to transform the Magic Mirror into a 3/3 and loses all abilities, it's nice, because you need to have some ways, because sometimes stuff gets a little hairy, and you're not necessarily going to win the game in 7 or 8 turns, you know?
I was thinking about giving the opponent your Magic Mirror when it has too many counters. Is that crazy?
No, that's kind of exciting. That's another way to win.
That's like a little mirror universe-ish way. I mean, that's got to be very difficult to set up, though. I mean, like,
no, not when you draw your whole deck.
No, but the thing is that they're not going to have drawn their whole deck, right? So, like, you're just giving them the ability to have no maximum hand size and like a 19-card burst. So it's pretty. It could be dangerous.
Yes, it definitely could be. You'd want to have other stuff going on. But there's also, if you just play a second copy of the Magic Mirror in your deck, when it starts getting a little bigger than you need, you can like play the second one with a legend rule, and you get to start the count over again.
Oh, that's probably the best way to do it then.
That's a really, really clean way, you know?
Yeah, I love it. Fantastic.
Some other options. Obviously, if you're playing white, you can Teferi Time Raveler. Finally, that guy's got a...
Yeah, I can't believe we found something for that guy to do.
Yep. Another possibility, if you're playing blue-black, you could conceivably turn into a pumpkin, which I think this card is really underrated. Turn into pumpkin's 3 blue, instant, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, draw a card, and if you paid at least 3 blue as part of its cost, you get a food token.
Yeah, I like turn into a pumpkin a lot. It's kind of like a kicked into the royal that doesn't have the 2 mana option, but in return, you get this food option. Like the 4 mana.
It's also a little easier to cast.
Well, I mean, it's not getting you anything
that's
if you
true.
don't get if you don't have.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think this is a good card. I think you can't play too many because without the 2 mana option,
very few.
It's very bad. You're like, all right, I just have these 4 casting cost cards that I need you to get online.
Because like it's 1 mana more than Repulse, but it can bounce anything, and it gives you a food under most conditions. So like, blue doesn't always have competitive life gain. And it is a way to get an artifact
that rarely has competitive life gain, right?
Right, and it is a way to get an artifact at instant speed.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that, like, if your blue-black control deck had 1 turn into a pumpkin, and then you, like, needed to, you could draw your whole deck and then bounce your Magic Mirror in order to get out of it, you know?
See, I'm just thinking about making a pumpkin, food at instant speed to counter my opponent's removal spell on my Shimmer Dragon. How hot is that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Plus, if you've got, like, the troll, man, you could just surprise him on the end step.
Oh.
No, it only works on your turn. But whatever. Yeah. Still hot. So, I don't know, man. I think that Magic Mirror is... it's going to be a breakout surprise tech card at some point.
I don't know how surprising it's going to be. This card just seems obviously strong.
Oh, I don't know, because I think it's a little unwieldy, and I think some people are going to think it's too fancy.
I don't agree with those people. I feel like it's the kind of card that you just got to put a little work in. You don't have to put that much work in.
You have to put a little work in. I don't think you need to put that much, but you have to do a little.
Like, if you're just, like, opting and destroying their stuff, right? Like, that's, counter this, bounce that, opt, jumpstart, kill that thing. Like, it's just 3. I mean, the thing that's beautiful about it is it's 3, but it's 3 on a turn where you have, like, 6 or 7 mana. You just have, like, your negate or your sabotage mana open. And if you've got any amount of, like, surveil stuff going on, there's thought erasures still, right? So you're just, like, turn 2 thought erasure, then, put some stuff into the graveyard. You're just setting it up. The thought erasure is always going to be reducing its costs, and possibly the additional surveils are going to help you out.
Sure.
Yeah, I love the Magic Mirror. I love talking about the Magic Mirror. I love imagining what I'm going to do with the Magic Mirror. I'm going to love messing people up with the Magic Mirror. All of that.
On the more speculative front, does Vantress Gargoyle do anything for you? This is that 1 in a blue 5/4 flyer with abilities.
So it's an artifact creature gargoyle. And I got to say, the price looks right. 2 mana for a 5/4. The first thing that's got to go into your head is, what is wrong with this thing, right? So, but there are things. There are some things wrong with it. It is flying, so it's a 5/4 flyer for 1 in a blue. But in addition to the flying, it has its next ability is Vantress Gargoyle can't attack unless defending player has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. Wow, that's a big condition. Vantress Gargoyle can't block unless you have 4 or more cards in hand. I mean, when you're reading that line, you're like, oh, so it's 7 for them, but 4 for me? Oh, no, it's 4 or more cards in hand. This is actually going to be kind of difficult. And then it has another ability.
Well, it's really easy to block, though, right? If you just play this on turn 2, you can block with it.
Yeah. And then you have tap. Each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So you can play it defensively early, and it can set them up for that 7 or more in the graveyard pretty easily. And it's kind of like a Serra Avenger, right? Like a Serra Avenger is only white, but you can't cast it naturally super early. Vantress Gargoyle, you can potentially cast super early, and like you said, it can play defense, but it's just not getting its money yet.
Yeah, it's pretty good against fetch lands, though.
You think this is going to be like a wider format type card?
Like if you have Thought Scour, fetch land, your opponent's got fetch lands. I don't know, man. I don't think it's out of the question. It's a pretty big body. And if you actually value it being an artifact, plus, dude, weirdly, this is like a Lantern control card, right?
Why is it a Lantern control card? Oh, because it's synergistic with their stuff.
You know the top of their deck, and you can tap. Each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard.
Oh, it's even better than their Pixis or whatever because it can block.
It doesn't have virtual haste, like you can't use it the turn you play it. But like you could block with this thing. Plus, it doesn't cost 1. Sometimes people just put like a Chalice down on 1, and you're like happy that you have a creature that didn't cost 1. You know.
So here's my take on this card. I think that it's probably pretty good. Right? It's got a lot of stuff wrong with it. Like, it's a fixer-upper house.
Yeah, it is a fixer-upper. It's a project.
But fixer-uppers, that's where you get a lot of market value, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, we cleaned out the basement. We put a new coat of paint on it. Thanks for the $1 million. A 5/4 flyer. If you just top deck this card in the mid-game, it just might be live.
Dude, speaking of a fixer-upper and $1 million... when I saw this card, I immediately thought of you. Overwhelmed Apprentice, blue for a 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, then you scry 2. Dude, this is a mana cheaper than your dream.
Than the Omen Speaker?
Yeah, dude, this is an Omen Speaker, plus it has the upside of milling them for 2 cards. And it costs 1 for a 1/2 instead of 2 for a 1/3. It's even got good types.
Well, it doesn't have good types if you're trying to get your Halberd online.
No.
I'm not a huge fan of this card, actually.
You don't think it fights with anything? I mean, why would you want a 1-mana 1/2?
It beats the bejesus out of 1/1s unless they, I don't know, have the ability to only be blocked by creatures with haste. Right?
Out of curiosity, does this card strike you as clearly better than Omen Speaker? No. And yet still woefully unplayable?
I think Omen Speaker is better. The 1/3 is a great combination. It survives combat with 2/1s. This does not survive combat with 2/1s.
Dude, this is the Abyss.
Overwhelmed Apprentice is the Abyss?
when your opponent's just playing with all 1/1s?
Who plays with all 1/1s? I mean, when I played Omen Speaker, people were literally playing like 12 2/1s in their deck. And anyway, now you could just play Augur of Bolas.
Okay, dude, here's the better Augur of Bolas or whatever. This card seems messed up. Fae of Wishes? This is a 1 and a blue for a 1/4 flyer, right? So already, what's going on? You don't normally get a 1/4 flyer for 2. When have you ever gotten a 1/4 flyer for 2? But
Never.
Then it's also got this ability of 1 and a blue and discard 2 cards, return Fae of Wishes to its owner's hand.
Why would you want to do that?
So it's a blinking spirit anyway. Right? In case you just have dead cards for whatever, or you have graveyard synergies or anything else. Right? But
or you need to get your cards down because you're getting attacked by Robin Hood.
Could be. So here's another thing, though. It's got an adventure you can go on called Granted. Granted is 3 and a blue. Sorcery, you may choose a non-creature card you own from outside the game, reveal it, and put it into your hand.
So this is like a
in tournament play
tutor from your sideboard, right?
Right. In tournament play, that means for 3 and a blue, you can get a non-creature card from your sideboard, reveal it, and put it in your hand. Then you also get a 2-mana 1/4 flyer for no reason, and the 2-mana 1/4 flyer has an ability so that if for whatever reason you went and got a non-creature card that was like busted to discard or out of the graveyard or whatever, Fae of Wishes does that too.
Yeah, I like it because you could just kind of stockpile it and then just sit there to defend yourself with it and then get it back into your hand so you just cast the front side later.
Isn't this card insane?
I don't know about if it's insane. I'd have to see how fast the other decks are. But I could see wanting to play it for sure. On that topic, there's an artifact that I was thinking a lot about. Lucky Clover. Have you seen this one? So Lucky Clover is a 2 casting cost artifact, and it says, whenever you cast an adventure, instant, or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. My question is, are there enough good adventure guys, Fae of Wishes is an adventure guy, to make Lucky Clover playable? Because I feel like if you're like playing Adventure Linear or something, that card just like draws an extra card per turn or something. But like a lot of the adventures stink, right? Like, but some of the adventures are very good. But I think you have to have a critical mass of very good.
Yeah, I'd have to see what they all are. I got to get more familiar with the file. But dude, I can't believe you're just glossing over Fae of Wishes.
I think the adventure's very expensive. I guess the Fae is very cheap, though. Like, he's an outstanding defender on turn 2.
Okay, here's another way to think of it. Would you play Wish for whatever you want, for any non-creature card, and draw a card for 4 mana?
Wish for any...
Like, it's a draw 2, and one of the cards is any non-creature card you want out of your sideboard.
Yeah, sure.
Now, what if that card also had cycling? But instead of 2 mana to draw a random card, you can pay 2 mana to draw a 1... You can pay 2 mana to already have in play a 1/4 flyer with an ability that's useful. And multiple really good types. In Modern.
In Modern?
Yeah! Like, okay, how about the card you... So, dude, how good is a 1/4 flyer that can blink?
I think the blink is very expensive.
Definitely.
It's mana expensive. Like, an original Blinking Spirit did not make you pay 1 in a blue.
Right, but 1 in a blue for a 1/4 flyer for 2 with no abilities. That's already, like, not an embarrassing card.
Yeah, I mean, I would play that in some formats. Just that.
Just that.
Just that. Like, no...
Right.
No nothing else.
You would play 2 mana 1/4 flyer... Or, sorry, not even flyer. You would play 2 mana 1/4.
1/3.
I'm saying a 1/4 for 2 is already a thing you could be interested in a lot of spots. This has flying, and it's a fairy, and it's a wizard, and it lets you discard cards, and it gives you some selection to protect itself for some inevitability. And that's all not even counting that it has this draw 2 mode where one of the 2 cards you draw is a wish. The other card you draw is this overpowered card. This card it's unreal.
So would you put this card in the same pile as the Bone Crusher Giant as one of the 5 best cards in the set?
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to have to think about this some more. Like, a lot of the time I don't see something to begin with, but then you snap me into it. I don't know. I'm I'm not Legoing with Fae of Wishes yet. It's probably going to end up my favorite card. Who knows?
It's not like Emery Lurker of the Lock, which is probably just broken in Modern, but will like stuff will change and it'll be weird. It's a whole thing. But I'm saying like Fae of Wishes just is like a straight up powerful card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a powerful card.
I was just thinking like you could just have it with Teferi, and then the sorcery adventure isn't even a sorcery.
Well, dude, you can just play the sorcery and get Teferi out of your sideboard. And then you just have Fae of Wishes, and you just have a Teferi, and you can potentially, if you want, you can Teferi your Fae of Wishes and get whatever else you want.
Oh, that's an engine.
Yes! This card is everything already by itself with so low of an opportunity cost. It's a 2-mana 1/4 flyer. If you draw it early, it's great defense. If you draw it late, it gives you whatever you want out of your sideboard. And it's a 2-for-1. And it has an ability to give you even further selection. And it can set up its own combos, so you don't even have to use very much sideboard space to promote the engine while still having the ability to get whatever else you want. And it has good types. Plus,
yeah.
what if you just get out of your sideboard something that you specifically want to discard? I don't know, man. I think this card is bananas. I don't know, man. There's going to be... I bet people are going to find a bunch of powerful ways to use this. How about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that, like, once I was on the you could bounce this with Teferi kind of zone, I'm like, well, I guess the Sorcery Adventure, granted, is a tutor, and it's a future granted again. Because of how the bounce interaction would work, so it's like 2 granteds. Every granted is like 2 granteds. You just need.
Well, it's recursive.
Yeah, like you're just bouncing it, right? So you never really spend it, right? Because granted goes to the exile zone, then you play it, and then you bounce it. It goes to your hand. It's like never going to the graveyard,
right?
Wait, can you? If you're exiling it, you can't like just granted other granteds, right?
You can't. No, it's not a non-creature card out of your sideboard.
Oh, because
it counts as a fairy wizard in your sideboard.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. That would be really interesting.
Well, that's because Fae of Wishes is such a powerful card. Going and getting such a powerful card would be really good. But you can go get other really powerful non-creature cards you own from outside the game. Dude, what if you just go get like a card that lets you take an extra turn? Or what if you get Cryptic Command? I don't know, man. This card's like messed up.
Yeah, tutoring is powerful. Patrick, it is expensive though. All of it is expensive.
Yeah. Okay, what about if you are playing Standard and you just want a 1/4 flyer because it's like a freaking unreal blocker early on, but it's also a 4-mana draw 2, and it's selection, and it's a late game victory condition and inevitability. Okay. Well, I think this card is going to be... It's so powerful from a rate perspective. It's so weird because it's like lots of stuff you never want, but it for some reason just gives you it at so much better of a rate than you've ever dared dream. It's going to demand that things get warped around being able to play it. For sure, there's going to be spots where people are going to... It's going to be at some point, somebody's big breakthrough is going to be, I don't play Fae of Wishes in my deck because everybody else plays Fae of Wishes or whatever. That stuff's going to happen at some point. But like Fae of Wishes is going to be a defining card in Standard that changes which cards are good, what are the assumptions. It's lots of stuff you don't know. We haven't been playing with Wish sideboards very much lately. And we certainly are not just jamming 2-mana 1/4s right now, you know?
Yeah,
but
so it's going to change the rules of engagement, you're saying?
Definitely. In a substantial way.
So, by my count, all of your actual favorite cards in the set so far have been adventure creatures. Fae of Wishes, Bone Crusher Giant.
Well, from a power standpoint.
And
I think they did a cycle on purpose, because like one of yours, Lovestruck Beast, is part of the same thing. I think they got a cycle of overpowered adventure creatures, where not even overpowered, but just like they wanted to make a super duper 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 pushy one for every color. And if you want to look at the white one,
is it Giant Killer?
Well, there's two different options depending on your perspective, right? Because there's also the mythic. So the Giant Killer we talked about already, where you're getting that kill spell and you can tap a creature. But there's this Realm Cloaked Giant, 5 white for a 7/7 vigilance, but it's got this 3 white sorcery adventure, destroy all non-giant creatures. So you can pay 5 mana for a sweeper, and then later you have 7 mana for a 7/7 vigilance. This one doesn't super do it for me, but it's going to have purpose.
I mean, you just on kind of riffing on the white kind of better than Keldor and Outpost land we were talking about earlier. You could just play, this card and that card as your ways to win, right?
Dude, you are all about Dude, you don't need to be so short on ways to win. They make the cards that win the game so good these days.
I don't know what I'm going to end up doing. I'm probably going to play a deck that has 20 creatures in it, but like it's still exciting to me when a new set comes out to explore, the different models
That's fair.
We've learned to build over the course of the last almost 30 years.
That's fair.
So wait, here's a super weird card. The Harmonious Archon. I don't even know what to think about this. Like, as hard as I'm like, is it going to beat me? Am I going to crush them? The fact that I don't know if I'm going to crush them or they're going to beat me is a little confusing. Right, so Harmonious Archon is 4 WW for a 4/5 creature Archon. It has flying and has 2 other abilities. Non-Archon creatures have base power and toughness 3/3. So in theory, the Harmonious Archon is the biggest guy in play.
Yep.
But it also says when a Harmonious Archon enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. So this card is just like 10 power?
Yeah, it's 10 right there for 6. But it's also limiting the size of your opponent, right?
Yeah.
Your opponent can't go over the top of you. Your Archon is like in a normal case, like obviously auras and equipment, and there's all this stuff, right? But at a baseline, your Harmonious Archon is the best game in town, and you're getting a 3-for-1, and it's powerful material. This card seems fantastic in Standard.
Yeah, like I was also thinking if you have like some kind of March of the Multitudes or something where you have like a big setup.
Yeah, they're dead.
Untap this is just like an overrun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this card seems excellent.
It's weird though. It's like an Eidolon of the Great Revel, which is like such a powerful card, but if you're behind, then suddenly you're really behind.
Sort of. I don't know, man. Are you imagining this just buffing your opponent's stuff? Like,
yeah, I'm thinking like they have these garbagey guys, and
I don't think that's going to be too hard to stay ahead of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll be all right.
I could play this with the white land, and then my 1/1 creatures are all going to be 3/3 creatures.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Harmonious Archon. 10 power.
Fantastic
for
card.
6 mana. You heard it here first.
It's expensive, but it's a good card. It's gonna have a lot of spots.
I don't even think of it as 6 mana is fine for a finisher of this size and power level, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not scared of it.
No, if you're scared, say you're scared. You're not scared.
No, I'm not scared. Not even a little bit. I'm gonna rumble. I'm gonna hit my opponent with Harmony. Then I'm gonna get him with Melody next time. Boom. Music to my ears.
Sure. What about we keep touching on so many, but man, Black Lance Paragon. 1 under black for a 3/1 flash. When it enters the battlefield, target knight gains Death Touch and lifelink until end of turn. And it is a human knight.
So this is a sweet combat trick, right? Because it has flash.
Definitely.
It's
particularly if your knight has first strike.
Well, if your knight has first strike, then it's crazy. I mean, it's also you could just use it as like a terror, right? So if your opponent's
Yeah.
attacking with like, I don't know, a 17/17 on the ground, you could just like play the Black Lance Paragon, give it Death Touch and Lifelink. It will take out however big of an opponent it is, let's say they have first strike, and then you'll gain a little life. You'll gain 3 life. It's all good. Outside of that, it's not real survivable. But it doesn't have to be, right? Like, this is like half a terror, half a sweet combat trick.
Well, remember, you don't just have to do it on your own guy, on your 3/1. Like, let's say you played Venerable Knight on turn 1, right? Your 1 mana 2/1.
Yep.
That when it dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on target knight. Well, this guy for 2 mana flashes down, and then you can buff your Venerable Knight so that it's the thing with Death Touch and Lifelink.
Oh, and then the Black Lance Paragon's he will live to fight another day, perhaps?
Yeah, because, I mean, and you're putting a +1/+1 counter on it, so now you have a 4/2.
Yeah.
But, like, even when you just terminate something, it's kind of a lightning helix, right?
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of the value is going to be.
And if you have Worthy Knight, the 1 and a white 2/2, that whenever you cast a night spell, create a 1/1 white human creature token, being able to make 2 blockers at instant speed for 2 mana.
And then one of them being the Black Lance Paragon. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I think this card is fantastic. I think it's just like, you know, if you think about a Terminate, right? And you're like, all right, wow, is Terminate a good card? No, Terminate's a great card. Like, this card is most of a Terminate, and it's a lot of a Lightning Helix at the same time. Oh, by the way, it's a 3-power attacker for 2 mana if they don't have defense. Like, that's the other thing, right? Like, it's just like an overpowered attacker. It's not real survivable, but it's like a Watch Wolf in that way. Like, if they don't have blockers, it's not worse than a Watch Wolf.
All right, man. Last one, and this one is, I think people are sleeping on it too. Witch's Vengeance. 1 black sorcery. Creatures of the creature type of your choice get -3/-3 until end of turn.
It is probably great, right? Its low end is a point removal card for 3. Its high end it's a damnation for 1 less. Its even higher end is your stuff lives, their stuff dies.
Right. Like, this card just seems extremely main deckable to me.
Yeah, I mean, like,
You can sweep tokens. Right, like, the ability to just use it to kill one thing, super easy. But the amount of times in which you're actually just going to just tear apart humans, right? Or tear apart knights or whatever.
I think the ability to take out only one target is what makes this card, you know, so exciting to me. And that, like, everything else is kind of gravy from there.
Yeah, so I think this card's going to be a staple.
Agreed. Do you think it's more going to be played in decks that have creatures, or more going to be played in decks that just want to kill creatures?
It's better in decks that just want to kill creatures.
It's too much.
But I think it'll get played in both. It'll get played in both.
It's really exciting when you kill their stuff and your stuff lives.
Definitely. And I think it's going to be good with decks that want to kill creatures but have a few creatures, particularly with weird types.
I'm in.
You know? Like, if you've got some of the victory conditions and stuff that people play, I mean, as long as your guys have weird types, you know, like, there's a lot. Plus, like, just you play your 1/4 flyer for 2 mana for no reason, and it just moats them, and then you can just give things -3/-3, and even if you need to kill some fairies, your Fae of Wishes lives.
Oh, that's really cool synergy.
And remember, when you play with cards that have 2 types, I mean, it's like, it's weird that it's actually kind of a drawback with this one, right? Well, because of the risk of overlapping and collateral damage?
Well, if you've got, like, fairy wizards and they've got fairy rogues, you just have to name rogue, right?
Well, no, but what I mean is that them having a fairy rogue is worse for them than if they just had rogue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. There's, like, more things that you can potentially get.
Right. Anyway, dude. It's interesting that they saved some of the juiciest stuff in the set till the very, very end. But excited to get down to it. I'm glad that some of these cards just seem so impactful.
Yeah, it's a really exciting set. And I think, we've talked about it before. I just think the flavor of this set is just one of the best I've ever seen. I think I'm really going to enjoy playing with it from not just from a mechanical standpoint, but like almost from a storytelling standpoint. I've never really felt that way about a Magic set before.
Oh, cool. All right, dude. I'll see you next week once we are finally into Throne of Eldraine.
All right. Bye-bye.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, so jail or hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind.